administrative as Lindsey Graham. How did how did Russia hack them when they refused to let the FBI even use the service?
Anything we indicted the Russians for? Obama's national security advisor is confident in this when taxpayers paid for it.
Guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society.
Well, I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't get that, man. They go through all this trouble to get here and then come here and vote Democrat.
The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, bear with me one moment here. I have no idea why my picture is gone. Here we go. Logitech, there we are. Nope. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Bear with me just a moment here. Let me switch over to another one that might have. Hey, there we go. This will work. Okay. This is always fun, especially when you have no idea what you're doing. But, so this is, my name is Patrick Berge. Thank you for joining the American Awakening here. I have today on a Skype call that will be joining us here very shortly, Susan Mathisen. She is a CPA. You may remember Susan from when we did our trip to Naples and met Dan Bongino. Oh, what fun that was. But I'll be bringing Susan on here in just one moment, as long as everything looks good. And, all right, everything does look good. So bear with me one moment, and welcome Susan.
Hello, Patrick. How are you?
I am doing great, Susan. Thank you very much.
Very good. So, we talked about having a conversation about the CARES Act that was passed on Friday, and we decided to do this via Skype and share it with your followers. And just for everyone else's information, I am a CPA. My office is in Texas. I'm licensed in Texas and California. And I spent pretty much my entire weekend reading 1,100 pages of the CARES Act.
And I swear, she probably completely enjoyed it too.
I did. Well, the thing is not everyone is going to have the time or desire to read something like that. And for me, I enjoy it because I can share my reiteration of the law with other people. And if I can teach people what I've learned, then I'm doing my clients a good service.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I thought it was important to share this information with your followers. It is my tax season, and the majority of my clients want me to keep to the April 15th schedule. So I am taking my time out today to do this because I think it's important for other people to become aware of some of the provisions in the law. I mean, the law, like I said, it's over 1,100 pages, and a lot of it doesn't apply to individuals. A lot of it's medical related, business related, medical, equipment, things like that. And I'm not going to get into that. It's kind of boring, actually. But there are some other things that I think that are interesting and very important to talk about.
I imagine you probably have a lot of clients calling you up trying to make heads or tails of actually what's going on with the CARES Act, because I mean, even Congress. I think you're the first person, including Congress, that probably actually read it.
I know, I did.
You know, so
one of the things that that I was sharing with. Actually, I was talking to my daughter about this. She said, this was last night, and she said, do I file my own tax return? I said, well, you do file a return. I file it for you because you work, but you're claimed as a dependent on your dad's return right now. She said, so that means I don't get this credit or this check that everyone's talking about. And so I explained to her that one of the things that none of the politicians, no one in media, no one's talking about is this refund, this stimulus check of $1,500 per individual, or what's $1,200 and then $2,400 for married filing joint. Mm-hmm. That stimulus plus the $500 per child in your family. Those checks are based on your 18 and 19 income taxes. But here's the thing. You have to pay it back. It's a loan. The politicians aren't telling you that. You have to pay
it back, the stuff that comes from your taxes? Yes. The stuff you're getting back based on your taxes? Or not that, I mean, yeah. Based on your, is that the stuff like that you would get because you're not working right now? Separate from the unemployment.
Yeah, this is separate from unemployment. So the stimulus checks that you hear the media talking about, are you going to get a check or do you qualify? Those are actual checks that are going to be, written by the Treasury Department and either mailed to you or directly deposited into your account if you one of these individuals that pay estimated taxes through the electronic payment system, then you'll get it electronically. But these checks, they're really structured to help people kind of bridge the next few months. But just keep in mind that these checks, and it's not for individuals that if you make over $75,000, it begins to phase out what you can qualify for in terms of the checks. And for married filing joint, it phases out at 150. So if your AGI, adjusted gross income, is over 150,000 and you're married and filing jointly, then you won't qualify for the check or the full check. But these checks, just keep in mind, these checks that are coming, they're temporary loans.
How will you end up paying them back?
So when you go to file your 2020 tax return, say your refund was $10,000. If you received a check, they're going to take, and you're married filing joint, they're not going to give you the full $10,000. Even though it's your money, they're going to reduce that refund by the payment that you received.
Will that be like all in one chunk in 1 year? Or are they going to spread that out over a period of years?
Well, it's in 1 year, 2020, unless you make the election to spread it out over 3 years, and you have to make that election, otherwise you'll be penalized.
Okay.
So it's not free money, like people and the politicians are leading.
Well, that's actually like good. I that's why you're smiling, isn't it? You're not big on free money.
Yeah, I'm not big on handouts at all. Mm-hmm. And the thing is for the politicians they're just not going to tell you the bad news. Mm-hmm. They never do.
So it's actually like a good thing, but it's so good that they can't tell you about it because they would look like crap.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be hard to sell it.
Exactly.
But
so it's an advance it's a tax credit advance, really.
Well, I actually think that's like good, because I'm thinking like, wow, we're just giving all this money away. We'll never get it back. But if we're going to get it back, that's actually kind of a good thing, right?
Yeah, and the money that's been set aside for this program is $290 billion.
I'm assuming it's tax or it's interest free, or no? Will there be interest on it?
Yeah, it's interest free. They're not going to charge you interest for this period of time.
Okay. So you and I had a great conversation last night, and we really went into an area of the CARES Act that I had been whining about for a while, right? Going, this is like from a subject matter expert in both cyber security and social media psychological warfare. It's like the perfect storm going on right now, because early on, like the first days, I heard them say that they were going to be using these emergency powers to reduce the HIPAA protections on like medical data and patient data. And from my perspective, as a white hat, like you see in the background, a white hat hacker, we're the good guys. As a white hat, you look for exploits on a network, and you try to identify those exploits as vulnerabilities, and then protect them. But they've literally reduced or eliminated. I'm not. Maybe we'll get an answer from you for that. But they've really minimized or reduced the HIPAA, which is the Health Insurance
Patient Protection Act.
Protection Act, HIPAA.
Yes.
It's a HIPAA, isn't it?
Yes. So HIPAA.
And so by doing this, they're really opening up, in my opinion, a huge problem, because that data in general is the most, and I was making this argument on Twitter yesterday, data in general is the most valuable commodity, bar none, traded or sold on our planet. Not gold, not titanium, not platinum, not uranium, not nothing. It is the most valuable. And it ages like wine. If you get data on a 10-year-old, and that 10-year-old grows up to be the next senator, and, that data could be useful for you in any number of ways, from a psychological warfare perspective, from a blackmail perspective, from every perspective you can imagine, and also, and for sure, behavioral profiles. And so we want to protect this data at all costs. And up until this point, it's kind of like, as broken and everything as the internet is, it was like the one thing that we thought that our government understood: protect our patient data, because it is the most, of all the data, patient data is the most valuable, right? Because think about it. They're using this data to create predictive models that will allow them to see weeks in advance on where the spread will be. And I completely agree with that, and it will. That's the predictive nature of it. But on that same note, when we would apply that to psychological warfare, interactive internet activities, or influence operations, we would be able to use that data to build predictive behavioral models that would allow us to help kind of push people, understand how to push people, because we would know where they're going to be, not 3 weeks from now, but we would know kind of what their mood would be or position would be in a very short distance. And like we were talking last night, if you understood through data analytics what a stock price was going to be like a millionth of a second faster than another guy, then you would profit from that, right? And
absolutely.
And so it's not like you have to know the future weeks or months or years in advance to actually have a difference. We're talking being able to predict the future in matters of milliseconds, but still understanding that can have tremendous impacts on people. So what was it that you were able to glean from the CARES Act with that?
So the CARES Act, there's a section in there under miscellaneous healthcare provisions. And it's right after the discussion regarding medical equipment and this and that. So this was kind of thrown in there. And it's section number 4223, not that y'all care, but
Write that down.
It's guidance on it's guidance on protected health information. And basically what this section does, and it's a little paragraph, but sometimes these little paragraphs give us nuggets that can be really scary. But here's what it says. It basically says that for a period from when the day that the act was signed, which was March 27th, last Friday, until basically the Human Health Secretary is supposed to give guidance on what to do next with the HIPAA Act, because right now all those provisions are out the window. And so you think, okay, well, do they have 30 days to figure this out and determine what to do with our health data? No, it's 180 days. That's 6 months. 6 months window that all this information, it's going to be available. It's like the Wild West. Mm-hmm. We've never had something like this. This is unprecedented, and it's scary.
It is. Michelle Malkin wrote a tweet about that today. She had DM'd me like a couple weeks ago now, was like, hey, wow, that's great. She retweeted something, and then apparently somebody must have explained to her, oh, you don't want to touch this guy because you're going to have hellfire come down on you. So she's apparently going with the story I put her on, not giving me any credit for it, and not even like getting the full story, right? Because
what story were you talking about again?
well, she did she's sort of pushing a story on how children's data, right? And she's like, wow, they're going to be able to have like unrestricted access to potentially children's data, which that actually violates all sorts of laws normally. But I'm assuming that this is potentially being waived for the global pandemic. And I tweeted back kind of like sarcastically, well, they've had access to children's data for like 5 years. And I included a snapshot in that of the Call of Duty the Call of Duty, what is that? Not foundation, endowment, Call of Duty endowment, which has my old boss, the owner of the ShadowNet, who is the board of directors of it. And what that, think of the access. Think of who plays Call of Duty? Kids, military-age males and younger, and even adults, right? And how does that, who has access, what does that third-party relationship, like potential third-party memorandums of understanding, give that nonprofit organization access to? And they use nonprofit organizations to do this, just like the Clinton Foundation. Ooh, what a great, but then, we find out later that it's not exactly what it's cracked up to be. And there's a lot of malevolence and stuff going on, and these people were doing bad things. So,
and whenever kids and individuals sign up for these games, or they download it, onto their computer and they get ready to start, there's always these disclaimers, right? And you have to accept or decline. And everyone selects I accept. They don't know what they're reading. They're accepting.
Nobody reads that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, no.
So, you're giving away the farm here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
possibly.
And I just saw Governor Cuomo today talking that made a very good point. He said that as we get more data, right, we started out with this data, and as we get more data, the models become more detailed, more predictive, right? They can do pretty good, actually, initially with all the data they had, but as the more and more and more data from different sources comes in, it allows them to even get more granular. And that's the same way with psychological warfare when you're building behavioral profiles. When you start pulling sources in from like a Xbox gaming like Call of Duty, and then you pull that data in with this data, the pandemic, and you're getting children's data, and then you combine those two together, and then you pull in real-time criminal background records, and then you pull in travel, and then you pull in your social media, right? And what do you have when you're all done with that? You have a company called ClearForce, which is owned by Obama's former national security advisor and his former director of CIA, which, oddly enough, virtually everybody on the planet that supports either on both Democrats and Republicans seem to be okay with that. Not, other than select people like us. And I think the problem is because you got people like Bongino protecting them, which makes zero sense to me. Because everybody that we've talked about, everybody in my story, heck, we were Paul Manafort's number one partner, right? And so you have these are the people that are getting access to this. And what does ClearForce do? ClearForce takes all of that data and builds predictive behavioral models to determine what? Whether or not you get a job or whether or not you lose a job that you have. And remember what I said to you last night, Susan?
Not only that, but security clearance too.
Clearances, yeah. So they could, they can control who has access to classified information and who doesn't, who gets a clearance and who doesn't. But what was a big thing that I pointed out to you last night that no one's going to mention, but it's the most obvious to like a white hat like me, and that is the data for what was that? We were talking about that last night.
The health data.
The health data, but they can use it. Oh my goodness! I'm probably even gonna have to go.
Well, to determine, use that information to determine, whether or not someone's going to get a job, or, you were talking about, well, maybe you're more qualified to get, qualified for a particular position, and you don't understand why this other individual received the position, received the job and the opportunity instead. Well, perhaps it's because of this modeling. Nothing that you really did, but it's like Minority Report.
And that's the point that I just had the brain fart on. Was just that. Remember that we were talking that last night. Yes. What if you're an employer, massive employer, and your HR department's looking ways to save money? What if they use that data to only hire people who have been infected with COVID-19 in the past? Because now they have antibodies. But would you want to hire someone that's never been infected by COVID, because that person could potentially be a threat to your insurance and your company? Because if they've not been infected by it and it stirs up again a while later, you could have these little spots where they shut down entire businesses, right? So if employers are going to want that data, and that data is going to be so valuable. I mean, it's going to bring in top dollar to these people, like beyond even the dark web stuff, right? And the sad thing about this isn't dark web data we're dealing with. This is not something being stolen or hacked from the credit reporting agencies and ending on the dark web. This is stuff that we're giving them.
Yes.
Here you go. Feel free to use this on us a year from now when we're applying for new jobs. And I mean, maybe it's a legitimate thing, but for a business not to want to hire someone, but they'll begin with that algorithm, and next they'll go to, is that person a Democrat or a Republican? We don't want Republicans working here. We don't want Democrats working here. We only want Republicans. And then what's next, right? We don't want, this type of person or that type of person. ClearForce can build in whatever else.
Voting records.
What's that?
Voting records. How you're registered.
They can access that data. And that, who knows? That may be why Pelosi wanted to get the voting information brought into that CARES Act. I don't trust these threat actors as far as I can throw my house, right? So I always look, and that's how my brain thinks, because that's why these guys paid me so much to think of this stuff for them, right? Because this is what they look for. This is what they do. They want to be able to get that information and use. I posted a thing today on Twitter that I think it's entirely. I want to know. I want to find out because of all the shenanigans that had gone on with Fox News. I wonder if Fox News Group has a contract with ClearForce with their HR department. And, they wouldn't necessarily, the employees would not necessarily even know, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it makes sense because, I got to tell you, Jim Jones, General Jones, he was on Atlantic Council. Mm-hmm. John Huntsman was on Atlantic. He chaired it for a time, so did General Jones. Rupert Murdoch is on Atlantic Council. I mean,
Abby Huntsman.
All these people. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Kurt Volker.
Mm-hmm.
That's a name we remember.
Who's that?
Kurt Volker from the impeachment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think pretty much, I believe, if I could be wrong, but I think every single person that stood up and testified against Trump during the impeachment, including that British potato head chick, was Atlantic Council.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, nothing to see here, folks.
Every one of them. Every one of them. Yeah, and then you look at Facebook. Mm-hmm. Who is one of Atlantic Council's largest contributors?
Yeah, they partnered with Atlantic Council to.
Facebook.
They partnered with Atlantic Council to restore election integrity worldwide. Facebook partnered with the guy that I built the ShadowNet for. The ShadowNet is specifically designed to circumvent the integrity of an election process.
Right.
And when we made that commercially available, we were Paul Manafort's #1 partner. We were managing the IT services for John McCain's campaign against Obama. And then go figure that the owner of his IT company ends up getting tapped by Obama to be his national security advisor. Well, originally was tapped to be a Secretary of State. Then somebody pulled the rug out from underneath him on that, and he ended up going as a national security advisor. So, which, that's going to leave kind of like a stick in your craw, right? I mean, that's going to bother you. So, you're not going to get someone raising their hand and saying, yeah, I'm a bad guy. You have to kind of look at their behavior, and you have to look at all of these little things. And for sure, I think if you look at the fact that I've been talking about this, my original IG complaint was in 2015, well before any of this started, well before Trump ever ran for office. And ever since then, everybody I've been warning you about, just every time there's another scandal, he's one step away, one step away, one step away. And now how would I have known that in 2015? I wouldn't have. But it certainly should, you would think, someone like Bongino would step back and say, wait a minute, everybody this guy's been freaking out about for the last, 4 or 5 years is directly connected to this. So maybe we'd want to do something, but that's not the case.
Yeah, well, I think the motivation behind the inaction is job security and contract security. Dan Bongino obviously has a contract with Fox News, and I think that Rupert Murdoch, he signs the checks, and he's not going to allow people like Abby Huntsman, Jillian Turner, Dan Bongino. He's not going to allow these individuals to expose General Jones. He's just not. And so they're choosing to stay in their contracts. Well, Jillian Turner is an exception only because she worked for the guy, right?
Yeah, she was his vice president.
Yeah, she was his vice president.
Kinda.
So I don't think she has to, there were years there, a window of years where she was both working as vice president and at Fox News. They overlapped.
Yeah. It's
And so
they
that's
they
really,
over
that's really telling.
they
to me.
over they overlapped while I was working because Jones Group International, Dynology, Clearforce, what is the Iron Hand Security?
Iron Hand.
All of those companies are owned by the same person. They all have the same billing address. They all have the same mailing address. So literally, when my IG complaint against Jim Jones, General Jones's son, was happening, her office would have been right next to his.
As vice president.
As vice president of Jones Group International, which I'm imagining was right next to Jim's office, Big Jim's office, and I've been in Big Jim's office. So there it's right there. Prime real estate. I think 15th floor of the Towers Crescent building in Tyson's Corner. And I imagine being shut down for them right now is costing them a pretty penny because they're still paying that rent. But they'll get it back in spades.
They're probably in Europe somewhere.
They're probably actually they'll get it back in spades. They got people writing stuff in for them into the CARE Act. What do you think? All of that, that extra fat and grizzle comes from. All that pork comes from.
Yeah.
Which was disgusting to see, just absolutely just appalling and disgusting. I mean, people should watch how appalling and disgusting the behavior of the Democrats. And some Republicans too were
Absolutely.
during this time when it should have been fix this deadly virus and put politics aside. No, they couldn't do it. And
It was an opportunity. They couldn't resist it. And so they're hurting our country.
So, tell us any other nuggets that you might have seen in there that caught your eye.
Oh, well, there is actually something that I think is a good thing. And for those individuals, there are a lot of people that don't make a lot of money. They're at home, restaurant workers, all these different service organizations, they can't work right now. Their businesses have been shut down all throughout the country. And one thing that I really do appreciate is in the law, in the bill, the CARES Act, there's a provision for unemployment assistance. And so the way that works is individuals that are eligible for unemployment business or benefits in their state, those individuals may also receive, in addition to what the state provides them, an additional $600 a week. That's for everyone that files. And
Will that have to be paid back, or?
No, this is different from the other. It'll be taxable income, just like regular unemployment is. So when you go to file your taxes, you'll be taxed on that. But that's additional $2,400 a month. That's huge.
Absolutely.
That's a lot. In addition to what your state provides, and it's through I think it was July 15th or July 30th, something like that. So that's great. That's super. And if you're still needing and to file for unemployment after that, your benefit after the July 15th deadline, then your benefits will be reduced back to the state levels. And the way this is going to work is the states will pay it in the same check. The same check as you did the other one, right?
Cool.
And so then the state, at the end of this period, the Fed will reimburse those states that are willing to undertake an audit for all their checks and claims that they paid out. And so the Fed will reimburse them for that, which is great because it makes the states whole. and at the same time, it's going to help keep our economy going a little bit more. So I think that's a great provision.
Oh, absolutely. Um, Let me know any other things that you saw that really looked that caught your attention.
Well, for small businesses, I did see that small businesses that are going through hard times, they can apply for a loan, a small business loan, up to, and there's calculations. It's based on payroll and rent and mortgage, and it's for a certain period of time. I think it's 4 months, something like that, and it's based on the last the average of the last 12 months of those same type of expenses that you've incurred or your business has incurred. So it's that, or it's the lesser of that amount, or $10,000. And so most businesses will probably, small businesses, and this is not for large corporations, this is for businesses that have 500 employees and less. So it's small businesses. It's not for the big corporations. There's also limitations on corporate compensation for executives, which I think, normally I don't think that I would. I'm a libertarian. I really don't like the government getting in our business, but maybe in this time period, during this window, this 4-month period, maybe that's okay. I don't know.
How about veterans that are on like disability and stuff like that? Did you read anything or catch anything in there?
I didn't see anything on that, but I think that's something I need to look at.
Look for it specifically.
Maybe we can do a follow up on that.
Oh, cool.
Because just I have a deep appreciation for veterans, and it's one of the reasons why I'm excited about the nonprofit that we're eventually going to be able to get started. So I'll look into that and I'll let you know what else I find out. But the other thing about the small business loan that I was talking about, some of these loans, if they're used if the proceeds are used for rent, mortgage, payroll, just to keep their business afloat, then it's very possible those loans will be forgiven. So it'll be converted into a grant, which I think is great. Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah.
And
I think it will be good because it will potentially give America as a whole competitive advantage to the rest of the world when this does get cleared up, assuming it gets cleared up. I haven't figured out how they've worked that problem out yet. Because traditionally you get like that herd where you get like a certain percentage, like 30% of the population that's built up antibodies for it, so they can't spread it. And if you had it and gave it and came in contact with someone with antibodies, not only would they not spread it, they would kill it. But by doing what we've done, we've circumvented that, right? And nature does not like to be played with. Nature has kind of a thing that we've never had any success at overcoming. So let's say we get every bit of virus out of Florida, right? And or let's say we get every bit of virus out of the United States, but somewhere in Southeast Asia they haven't, or somewhere they haven't. And because we did it by just staying away from each other, and no one's actually the sufficient number of people haven't developed the immunity to it, and we don't already have a vaccine, because that's going to take at least another a year. A vaccine would solve that problem, but potentially could cause more. No one's explained to me that, okay, we did great. America, go back to work, and then open up the airports, and then it's like going, they'll be shutting down cruise ships and hospitals again.
Yeah, so what's the end game? When does it stop?
It stops when, like every other virus does, I would assume, when a certain percentage of the population gets it, because if I'm infected, I go to one. I can spread it to 3 people with this
Right.
particular virus
Right.
thing, and normally it's like with a regular flu, one person spreads it to like one person. But if I spread it to 3 people and 2 of them are already immune, and then that one person that wasn't immune spreads it to 3 people, and those 3 people are already immune because
Right.
the numbers are working out, that works great. The
Like
virus
the
can
chicken
no
pox.
longer spread, right?
Like the chicken pox, right?
It like the chicken pox, exactly. But we have decided to say, screw you, Mother Nature. We're going to do this our way. And has anyone? No one's explained to me an end game on how we are actually going to defeat Mother Nature. Because it's like trying to control water. It's going to find a way. No matter what, it's gonna want to get to that 1/3 thing before it starts to become something that's tolerable.
Yeah.
SARS wasn't like that because it didn't spread so rapidly, so easily.
Right.
The flu spreads like that because it changes kind of like a little bit every year. If it didn't
Yeah.
change a little bit every year, then you'd build up that herd immunity and no one would ever have flu again.
Yeah, it mutates. Nature
Yeah.
mutates.
Yeah, the 1918 flu, Spanish flu.
Spanish flu.
Oh my God, how racist! Did you just say Spanish? You racist!
I said Spanish flu.
I know. What a racist! It's like, isn't that hilarious? I saw Cuomo talk today about closing parks, and I'm like, someone's going to come out and say he hates children. What? It's like media has taken this stuff on both sides to the ultimate of stupidity, and
Yeah.
it's going to get a lot of people killed.
Well,
People are going to
that-
die because of
you know,
this.
I think they're just there's a huge lack of creativity and
Mm-hmm.
willingness to do the work in the journalists. All the journalists out there, people
Mm-hmm.
that say they're journalists. They're not. They're certain people are just taking certain cues from whatever point of view they want to spew, and they're aggregating.
Or paid to narrate.
Yeah, or paid. Yeah, exactly. And they're just aggregating this information and just debating it and just going on. And it's lack of creativity.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched the news. Honestly, I haven't watched the news in so long. It's probably been 3 years. 3 years.
I don't blame you. I wish I could say that. But I'm kind of like, I'm stuck on just completely focused on taking these threat actors down. And, it seems hopeless. It seems impossible. But we'll see what happens with that. If it wasn't for you guys, for people like you, who have been so supportive on my Patreon site. Oh, patreon.com/the ShatterNet hacker. If it wasn't for people like you helping me out, and I've been getting so much support from my Patreon supporters, even now, right? Even now, because they get it. And why did you? I met you. When you saw, I think, tell everybody how you met me.
I first learned about you when I was watching George Webb. George Webb did an interview with you. I think it was in November, mid-November, maybe early November. I don't recall, but he did an interview, and I could see George Webb's expression, how he was kind of challenging you. He was trying to figure out if your story was real, and if you were for real, you know what I mean, and being honest. But, you were so just outright, blatantly honest about everything, that I knew, I knew that there was something there, right? And so I have this concern about privacy. I've had it for a long time. I think I was when I was a teenager, right? And so, and I'm trying to teach my kids that, because the kids these days, they'll give away the farm and not think a thing about it. They don't care. They just take it for granted that everyone knows everything. Well, we shouldn't accept that. And I choose not to accept that. So just listening to your story and how much you've lost by the actors of our own government, the people that you are trying to support, and the way they've treated you, that disgusted me. And so that's why I started getting involved. You lost your family, you spent so much time overseas fighting for us and losing opportunities with your young children. I mean, that hurts. And, and then to be treated the way you were, I just think, and you were doing the right thing, and, I go back to that memo that was sent to you, the email regarding how you're different because you're ethical. Well, I don't think so. I think that makes me sick. And I wish, it's probably the truth, but I wish it wasn't. I consider myself to be very honest and ethical. I have to be to do what I do, filing income taxes. Otherwise, I would put myself at risk. And I'm not willing to do that. I'm pretty conservative.
That was a shocking statement in that email, wasn't it?
Yes. How, it was, I think the comment was, I realize you have all this integrity, but that's not how the world works. And if you want to do like that, you're not going to get anywhere. I can't accept that.
Really? My job was protecting national security data for a $10 billion the J8-4, the comptroller's office for USFK J8 in South Korea. What is a You're a CPA. What's a comptroller's office? Should we secure the data?
Yeah, exactly. That's where you have all your employees' data, their social security numbers, their addresses, their family members. Everything's there.
The budget
for what? The budget, the vendors, who's receiving, these top secret contracts. All of this.
And the funny thing about that, not funny about it, but I kind of starting to figure this out because I saw something the other day that, Atlantic Council is now pushing social justice programs to Taliban, which I'm like, oh God, what could go wrong by, radicalizing these potato heads, right? But when I thought about it, I'm like, well, okay, we know that Democrat and Republican threat actors have been profiting in the Ukraine for a long time, basically just treating it like their playground and a bank of taxpayer appropriated funds for themselves to just play with in the billions and billions of dollars. And we know this now, but all this heat is on the Ukraine with Barr and everybody, so they go over there. But I'm thinking, you would be stupid to think that they were only doing that in Ukraine. And because of the fact that my job was the Information Assurance Security Officer, the IASO for USFK J8, I was literally the one that was responsible for the data for USFK J8-4, which was the comptroller's office. So if you are, and the problem that they had with me was that I wouldn't bend the rules. If it required a memorandum for you to get access to something, I needed to see that memorandum. And I don't care who you were. I don't care if you were a freaking 4-star general. If you walk up to me or send me a request, you better have the right stuff or I'm not going to give it to you. And when they removed me for that...
and frankly, if you did that, they could send you to prison.
If I did it, I could go to jail. Exactly.
That's what I'm saying.
Right? Exactly. So I'm kind of damned if I do and damned if I don't. I didn't not do it because I was afraid of going to jail, because I do stupid things all the time that could probably put me in jail. But that's another episode. We'll do one with Jay. We're doing the comedy show tonight, by the way, the Kevin Howley show, and maybe we'll go into that there. But no, that's why you don't do it, because I always thought that that there was a penalty or punishment for doing something like that. Then I learned there is, but there's that two-tiered justice. You've got Hillary, and then you've got me. Hillary, nothing would happen. Me, I'd be thrown in jail in 2 seconds if I gave Hillary access to something. But other people, there was an IASO that worked, a contractor that worked for the State Department for Hillary. And just like I was responsible for USFK J8, J8 0 through 4, there was a contractor that was responsible for the data for Hillary. And that contract, if Hillary would have called up that contractor and said, listen, I want you to, or that contractor would have called her up and said, hey, you can't use a private server because it violates AR 25-2 regulations.
Right.
Hillary would have called up that person's program manager, and that program manager would call that person up, me in my case, whoever it was in her case, and say, stop upsetting the client. You've seen, how many emails have you seen that I was threatened to be fired, literally threatened to be fired, because I was enforcing policies that were laws to keep the data safe, you know? So anyway,
not only the data, but that data, that data is tied to people. It's our forces, our armed forces. So with that data at risk, you're putting our guys at risk.
Yeah.
And that really is very upsetting to me.
So we're coming up on we're on 53 minutes right now. I didn't pick a specific time, but maybe you'd like to just kind of wrap it up with any thoughts that you have. I'm hoping we'll be able to. I really enjoy you. This is like a smart lady, you know. So I really hope to be able to have you on again. We can do this some more and be able to kind of like work as a team, because they aren't listening to me. Throw out any last words or any thoughts that you had on what you experienced knowing me and getting involved with this, and maybe how other people could, try to encourage other people to get involved with the awakening.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not very trusting of people. I'm very suspicious. And so for me to, I listened to that interview that you had with George Webb, and then I think you had another one with Jason Goodman. And then I read your book, and I bought several copies of it. I mailed one hand-delivered one to one of the partners of Glenn Beck, which I'm actually going to be seeing him next week, so we'll see. I'd like to get his input. But the point is this is too much. It's too much responsibility for you to do by yourself. And I think for people that really are passionate about our country, which I am, and passionate about security and privacy, which I am, and think that if other people get involved, we can make a difference. I think we can. It's important to me, and I think for all the people that are supporting you on Patreon, I would encourage all those people to share this video and to share some of your other videos with some of their friends, and get the message out there. We can't do all this ourselves. You can't do it yourself. You're going to need help. I can't do it myself. I'm sitting here trying to run a business too, and I have family that I need to take care of. But because it's so important to me, I am taking the time out. And it's April 1st, for gosh sakes. And so it's for me to be doing this. Some people might think I'm being foolish, but I don't think so. It's important to me, and I really don't care what they think. So I think for everyone watching, please get involved and encourage your friends to watch his videos, understand the message and support Patrick in his message and getting his message out. And I hope you'll, Patrick, keep us updated on the tour that you have planned. I know things got a little railroaded with the pandemic, but I think you still have some plans out there to get something out there.
Oh yeah, and how do you like the 360 videos that I've been putting out there?
So cool. I love that because
Yeah.
you can see when you turn your phone.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like such a little geek. I'm like, oh, you can turn your phone and see the trees and the mangoes. Or,
Can I say Can I say who sent that to me?
Sure.
That was sent to me by Susan. Because I was like, for some reason I was talking about, we were just having a conversation, like a little chat going. I'm like, it's just like I'm going, boy, I'm going to be driving around the country. It'd be cool to have one of those little 360 cameras. Next thing I know, it showed up in the mail. And I've been playing with it ever since.
Okay, so you have a gift coming.
Yep.
Surprise.
Yep. So that was super cool. And the video is turning out really good. And I think I got my audio issue resolved. But I think that's going to be like something that really helps draw people into the awakening, along with a Harley Davidson pulling a trailer that says the American Awakening with like Obama's national security advisor on the back of it. So we'll get their attention one way or another. And once we do, these folks like Dan Bongino, because I filed a lawsuit in D.C. court. We're still working that right now. It was rejected as a qui tam without without prejudice, which means that the DOJ doesn't want to really move. The DOJ is not going to move forward with it as a qui tam under the whistleblower thing, but because they did it without prejudice, it specifically is done to allow me to move forward as an individual with an attorney with the same full regimen of like discovery and everything else immediately, right?
The reason why they did that is a qui tam lawsuit. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I know a little bit about this. A qui tam lawsuit is you're basically filing a suit in federal court on behalf of the federal government. Mm-hmm. And so us individuals, we're not allowed, unless we're licensed and appointed, to practice and to represent the government. That's the only reason that they did that, because there's a precedent that's been set for individuals in federal court. Some of the lower courts you can, but in federal court it's not allowed for personal individuals to represent the government on, just themselves without an attorney. So that's the reason for that. And so I think that if there are anyone that out there that have, an attorney that they know, in DC that handles whistleblower lawsuits, he's got all the evidence.
It's going to get interesting. It's getting interesting. Hey, let's close this out, Susan. I think I actually got the music going, and we're at exactly 1 hour. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have a wonderful evening. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I don't have any ending video thing, so I'm just gonna go largely blank. But it's all a work in progress, right? Thank you so much, Susan.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on, and we'll see you next time.
Good night, and God bless.